All right. So, for today's class, really, we didn't have anything to do besides, you guys practice, the things we did in class last semester. Today's class, we're gonna start. Well, we're gonna learn how to render. So this way, we're gonna learn how to use the camera and some lighting features, right? So that we can start to document everything we do in class properly. Because eventually, everything in this class, you're gonna have to showcase in a portfolio, right? So when you want to showcase, your early renderings, moving all the way to your final ones, which will be more realistic, right? So, and you want to show that process and progress of your skills getting better every week, right? So, and starting today, after the class ends, I'll set up a Brightspace folder, right, for the first basic renderings. And pretty much what you guys are going to be submitting is you're going to be submitting 5 basic renderings every class, to show me the skills that were covered in the previous week of the class, And ideally, those renderings should be getting better and better every week, and eventually, once you go to the portfolio, it's going to all be there. So you can, create a portfolio and tell the whole story about this whole class and all your skills getting better every class. So that'll be the intention for today. So let's see if we can share here. So in our last class, it was a pretty basic class. Let me open the folder here. We mostly covered, the 3D Max interface. We made some random shapes. We learned about snaps, and different ways to copy from copy, instance, and reference. Right? This we don't need anymore. And then we made some very complex shapes. So you guys kind of saw what 3D Max can do with modifiers. These are pretty cool things. If you're working on the idea part or the let's say massing models part of the class. But eventually, we're gonna focus here on one main project that we're all gonna, tackle. I'll give you guys the model of that project, and we're gonna spend time, with the materials, the lighting, to try to make it as realistic as possible and make a really cool scene for our, for our portfolio, right? And to be able to showcase our skills to other people. So I'm still deciding which project to use. I kind of randomize the projects every semester. I think before I've done one by Mies van der Rohe, before I did one by Tadao Ando, and we might do one where we're gonna take a house and add detail to it. So let's see, do I have it here? No, I close it. But yeah, so I'll get that figured out. Today we're still working on the basics, and we're gonna do basics of materials, lighting, environment before we get to the main house and start to really detail it and create a pretty cool, looking space, those things. So regarding the last class that we had, from that time, any questions or comments, anything that maybe might be unclear or confusing? So I'll take the silence as no questions. Yeah? No?
Yeah, no questions.
Okay, just again, let me know, okay, so let's see here. So the main thing is you guys made this, hopefully you guys made these shapes, right? Like this, right? We tried different things and they're all pretty cool looking shapes here. The next thing here is I want to be able to, document them and add them to my portfolio because we're not going to be doing here screenshots, right? You want to properly render and maybe create shadows to the space and, and look at the sky and such things. So the first thing I'm going to do here is just give him a base. So I'm gonna just, go to primitives, a box, and just, give it a simple base like this. Why? Because once I add lighting, I want to be able to cache shadows, right? Otherwise, there's no shadows here. So simple base, right? Imagine these are all my little sculptures that I made before. And now that we're gonna do here, so everyone already has 3D Max installed, right? On their computer, whether it's the school or their personal computer, that should be done, right? Today, the next thing is to install V-Ray, right? Excuse me. So for V-Ray, everyone here will share the same V-Ray account. Pretty much, we all have the same username, the same password that we can use for V-Ray. And I want to go over some of the steps to install V-Ray here. No one's done it before, right? Just to make sure.
No.
No, okay. All right, so let's go. Let's go here. 1 second. 25. Where did I put it?
Hi, Professor. Have you started the recording for the class?
I believe I did. Yes. Let me just
Okay, thank you.
let me confirm. Yes. Yes, we are recording.
Thank you.
Thank you for the reminder. Okay, let me find okay, so Give me a second here. So, and again, I'll give you guys the account afterwards, but let me see where I put it. Because, I kind of change the password every year we have to change the password for this account. Let's see here. Oh, I know where it is. It's in my Dropbox. 1 second, guys. Just checking my old Brightspace from this class from the winter break. Okay, here we go. So again, I'll put these things into the I'll make a Brightspace today for your class and I'll add it there. So pretty much what this is here, this is my this is a class that I took in winter. But 1 second here. Same class as you guys. But I'll put this details over here. So over here. So pretty much, once you have this, all you do is just follow the details here. Pretty much, you go here and you click on this link, right? This is the download.chaos.com, right? Then you're gonna sign in with your credentials, which are username right here, password right here, right? And then download the V-Ray version you need, in this case, Max 2025, right? And then once it's installed, you're gonna go here, you're gonna click on this right here and sign in to the account. So pretty much what we do here is I'm gonna click here, right, to download Chaos Group. It's gonna take me to this site. So here's the same account you guys have, So again, this account doesn't matter because this is an account that we all share. I have the same account as you guys. It'll be arch.student.vray.gmail, and we all have the same password. The main thing here is do not try to change the password because it will change it for all of us. And then I have to reset the account, which happens a lot. So unfortunately, don't make any of these, changes. So once you have this here, log into the account here. It's going to take you to the downloads page, right? In this case, well, mine's already installed, so let's go here to download, right? And you downloaded V-Ray right here, 3D Max, of course, and Max 25, so in this case, 25, and then download, right? Once it downloads, let it download, next, after that, close your 3D Max. It needs to be closed to be able to install it. So close 3D Max, download V-Ray, install it, let it go through all the prompts, let it finish. Okay, then it's done. Now go back and open up 3D Max like this. So at this point, we'll follow the same thing here, right? Next, before you do anything, the next tab that we have here, what is it here? Is we have, okay, so go here, right? Install it, download 3D Max, install it, right? Once installed, go click on here, right? Localhost, whatever this is, just click on it here, right? It's gonna take you to here and make sure you're signed in, right? Again, here I'm signed in as Arch student. Make sure you signed in, and then once you're signed in, just close it. You're done with that. And then you can launch 3D Max. So now I'm gonna launch 3D Max. Here it is, right? I can launch it. And now, how do I set up, the V-Ray, to activate it? If you see here, we have a little wheel with a little teapot. That's the render setup. So we're gonna go to render setup here. And again, a lot of settings here, but for now, if we see here, this one we could ignore, that we can ignore. The key one for us is this one here called renderer. Right now it's set to Arnold. Arnold is that 3D Max default rendering engine that we're never gonna use. So ideally you should be able to click here, right? And find here V-Ray 7 hotfix. Sorry, my voice still, excuse me. So you're gonna see here V-Ray 7 hotfix 1, right? You're gonna see also below that V-Ray GPU. So never use GPU. That's requires an extremely fast computer relying on a very fast graphics card that we don't have. So we're gonna always use the top one called V-Ray 7 hotfix 1, right? Click on that, right? And then see this tab here that says V-Ray, click here, right? And you should see all the settings here, right? If for some reason you click on V-Ray here, so you can see here V-Ray hotfix 1, right? You go to V-Ray, and this is just blank. That means there's nothing here. It's all just gray. It means you need to sign in. So if that ever happens to you guys, switch over to settings here, right? And you see where it says here, manage chaos license. Click on that. It's gonna load this again, right? Log in, sign in. and then close it, Then close this, close Max, open it again, and that's it. Everything will be signed into it. Now you should be able to go to render setup. See V-Ray 7 here, go to V-Ray here, and everything will be shown here. All these different, modifiers here. And that's it, that's the it should work ideally perfectly like this. But I'm sure there's always something that happens, but whatever happens, we'll figure it out and try to get it fixed. So to follow these ideas, again, I'll post those details in Brightspace after class, so you guys can start to download the process and install V-Ray here. All right, so right now we have the V-Ray renderer set up here. So that's for now, we can close it here. So the idea now is that we want to document these things that we made in class last week through a rendering, right? So to be able to do that, we need a few things, What is the first thing that we need? What do you guys think? Think about it like in real life, If I want to document this, what is the first thing I must have?
You need a view or an environment.
Yes, or before that, you need a camera, right? So the cameras here are meant to work almost like in real life, They have all the settings we can modify like a real camera, right? And you can point and shoot, you can move around. So it's actually fairly nice because that part is realistic, I think. So I'm going to switch to a top view here. And at this point, this grid, we're not going to use it again. So I'm going to hit G. And I'm going to do F3. So we have our space like this. So we have a nice shaded view, no grid, right? And there's our several models we made. So we're going to put a camera. If you look up here, right? We had discussed this one here, the little sphere here. Those are the 3D primitives. The next one here looks like a circle and a square. Those are the shapes, which is pretty much the 2D primitives: lines, rectangle, circle, ellipse, square, those things. The third one looks like a light bulb. That'll be our light that we're going to use very soon, right? And the fourth one looks like a camera. That's our cameras that we're going to use. These three we're probably never going to use, but for now, we'll discuss if we need to. So let's look at the camera one here. And then we have options here. We have standard cameras, we have V-Ray cameras, and we have Arnold cameras. So even though we're using V-Ray, and most likely we would use a V-Ray camera, it's not as precise. So I like to use better a standard camera. So you're gonna pick standard, and then we're gonna pick a physical camera. That means that we can control, physically, right? So click on physical camera, right? Then we're gonna move our mouse here, right? And we're gonna just point and drag our mouse. So imagine we're pointing far away, and then we're gonna drag the mouse in the direction where the camera is pointing to. So for example, I'm gonna point there, drag my mouse like this, right? So, and I'm still not letting go of my left mouse button. When I let go, that's my camera, right? And the camera, I'm gonna go here to the move, right? We have move, rotate, and scale up here on the left side. And we could, we can move this part over here. We can move. So this is considered the target, right? The target is, of course, is the focus of the camera where it's looking at, right? And if you see here, under the properties here, it's called the target, right? It's just physical camera, has a random name. We could definitely change the name to make it easier. It's called physical camera 001 target, right? If I click on the actual camera, that's the physical camera. That's the actual camera that we're gonna, use it to, like this, move along here. And you see that there's a lot of settings here. This is why Macs sometimes get confusing. And this is why, by learning the basics, we can see what things we can ignore. Because if we start trying to modify every single setting here, it'll be, very hard. Because the idea here is that 3D Max is meant for everyone, right? Not only architects, engineers, photographers, movie producers, right? So what it gives you here, it gives you all the settings that anybody, whether their profession is architecture or not, they could use, right? And most of these settings are made for trying to match the properties of a real camera. So let's say, for example, that you're working with a, do you guys know what is a DSLR camera?
No.
Okay, so a DSLR camera is something like this, right? Right? It's a camera that has, a body and a lens that you can detach and change. It's a professional camera, right? And it has a lot of settings, right? So these settings here on the right side allow you to match the settings to any camera. Whether it's a Canon, you can match their lens, you can match their settings. Of course, most of us now, mostly you guys, are used to taking pictures with what?
The phone.
The phone. And many times now, the phone cameras are sometimes better than these cameras, right? Or unless you get a really, professional one. So there's almost no need to carry a big camera like this. But these settings here, if you do want to match it. So for example, they have things like type of film, type of lens, f-stops, aperture, field of view, right? Do these terms make any sense for you guys? Have you heard them before?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So for us,
Mhm.
we don't care, right? About any. We only care about one setting here, and that is the lens of the camera, right? Because you don't want a lens that creates a very wide angle view because things get stretched out, and you don't want a telephoto lens, which means you're really zoomed into a shot. If you see here, if I do F3, yes, this triangle here, right? That showcases me the camera lens, and if you go here on the lens here, right? This current lens is 40 millimeters. Again, that number to you guys probably makes no sense, doesn't mean anything. But in architecture, a typical lens to use is between 20 and 24 millimeters. Why? Because it gives you a wide angle without having to go too much wide of an angle, and it gives you a nice view of the whole building, right? So without having to overstretch it. You see, if I move this thing down here to, let's say, like an 8 millimeter lens, this lens, which is, let's say right now, as I said, is 5 millimeter. That's considered to be a fisheye lens, right? A fisheye lens can capture almost 360 degrees, right? But what it's doing is completely distorting everything because it's getting pulled out and stretched. If the lens number goes higher, so we go to like in this case 100 millimeters, that's a telephoto lens. That's a lens for zooming in very close to things that are very, very far away, right? But for us, we're gonna use a lens that is, let's start with 24 millimeters, which is a very typical lens in photography. It gives you a nice balance between wide angle and actual view. So, and then we'll see in more detail soon how the lens works. But for now, that's the idea, right? So if you see here, there's my camera, right? You're gonna see also one thing, that the camera is kind of in between the ground right here, because whenever you add something to the scene, it always gets added to the horizon line, which is the 0,0. So right now that the camera is kind of halfway between above the, and below the horizon line. So let's see what this looks like. So I'm going to make so in my case, I like to see let's say the 3D view on top here. So I want to be able to move like this. And I like to have it orthographic. So let's say there's my view like this. And then I like to reserve the bottom right one for the camera view. So on the orthographic here, I'm going to click on camera. So see, now we have one camera set up here. I'm going to click on that. Right? And we see something that is half black, half gray, right? Why? Because this black area is the camera currently sitting right on the horizon line. So the first thing that we must do is we must move the camera up, right? When you move the camera up, make sure that you select front and bottom like this, right? Because if I pick just the front, that means that I'm moving just the front of the camera, which is fine, but for now, we want to keep everything the same. So I'm going to pick front and back like this, right? So like go here to the Z-axis. See that now and kind of put the camera kind of halfway between your space here, right? So now we can see, this pink area is the ground, this gray area is the sky, let's say, for example, right? And that becomes fairly simple, right? And now, one thing also that we have to consider here is that when you put a camera here, even though this is the camera view, right? And when I move here my camera, you can see that it will change depending how the camera is moved, throughout the scene here. But the one thing to be careful here is that this is not really the view you're going to get when you render, right? Why? Because these viewports are controllable, meaning that I can take this viewport and make it like this, right? So this picture just changed in proportion from something that is horizontal to something vertical. Again, I can really make the viewports like this, Now this view changed to be really panoramic like this, which is not really real. When you render, you're gonna get a rendering that is based on the size that you've set up in the scene, right? So for that, let's go here to render setup, right? When you go to render setup here, right? And you go to the first tab here called common, right? We're gonna set up something here from the beginning, only one change now. So we're gonna look at output size. That is the size and quality of your rendering. So I'm gonna change it here. We're gonna use the one called Vista Vision. It will give me 4 different sizes. We're gonna start by the mid-range size. So 1024 by 683. That is the size in resolution for my shot, So 1024 by 683. Okay, there. That's not that size, So to see the actual size, why is it important to see the actual size? Because, maybe you're taking this shot here, and when you render, this building is not there, right? It doesn't fit because this proportion is not accurate. You have to go here to the camera part, right? Go down here and say here, show save frame. So save frame creates a yellow frame around your viewport that always keeps the same proportion, no matter what you change. So if I do here, show save frame, right? See, we get a nice yellow viewport. And even if I squeeze this viewport to be really small, right? We still have the same proportion of the shot. So I will always know exactly, if I make it very big, same proportion, right? So that means that when I go and I start moving the camera like this, left and right, I know that everything within those yellow lines is gonna be in my shot, right? Does that make sense? Guys,
Yeah, that makes sense.
yeah, anybody confused? Again, stop me if I go too fast and I'll go back and see it again. Okay, so that's the first thing to kind of understand with the camera. All right, it's pretty good. All right, so now we have, our, let's say our subject, that we built, right? We have our camera, right? And, let's try to render, right? So we're gonna use this button here. It looks like a teapot with a little thunderbolt. So let's say render and see what we have. There, it's done. We got a black rendering. Why?
Because there's no lighting settings or no lighting source.
Exactly. Right now, this scene has absolutely no lighting sources, right? And eventually, a scene might be very complex because we might have the sun, the sky, the environment, artificial light, such things. But for now, this thing has nothing. So our next task here is to set up a sun. So once again, let's switch back here to the top view of our scene. Let's go here to the little light bulb, right? And we have, again, different lights, photometric, standard, V-Ray, and Arnold. We're going to use V-Ray for now. Eventually, we're going to use photometric, which are more advanced lights. But and we might use standard. They'll have different qualities of what they can bring to the rendering. But for now, we're going to use a V-Ray sun. So select V-Ray. And right here is V-Ray sun. Just like before, the sun, you're gonna be somewhere outside here. Click it and drag it towards the scene. And then let go. It's gonna say, would you like to automatically add a V-Ray sky environment? Yes, because the sun is gonna create direct shadows, which means hard shadows, while the environment is gonna create soft shadows or ambient light. So you wanna have, because the sky and the sun create two different light types. So this part always say yes. Now let's look at the sun here. So because you wanna put it in the right way, you see that has a little arrow, right? That should be pointing towards the scene. Because sometimes students will go from left to right or right to left, and then the sun is pointing the other way, which makes doesn't really work out. So right now this sun, has again the source, which is called, if you look here, it's called the sun, right? And we have the little yellow square, which is the sun's target, right? So of course we can set up this like this. And then if we go here, we have, it looks kind of blue here, but you see the sun also is added how in the scene. It's completely what? Like everything, it's flat, right? So if the sun is currently flat on my scene, am I gonna get any light? What do you think? Again, don't be afraid to take a guess. What do you guys think?
I suppose you would have to move the camera to see the shadow, or I don't know.
Well, I mean, imagine, this sun is completely horizontal to the ground, right? So, it's so flat to the ground that most likely you're not gonna get light because it's, I think it's already past sunset, right, in the sun. But let's see, right now the sun is completely flat. Let's take a rendering here and let's see if anything changes. Okay, so it does. Okay, so right now, first of all, our scene now is almost completely white, right? So we're missing one more setting here. What do you think we're missing? Why does everything look so white now? Why would a photograph look white? Think about it, from your experience.
Too much bright light.
Yes, too much bright. So it's missing.
Exposure.
Yeah, so it's missing a filter, right? That controls, too bright, too dark, It needs some type of filter. Right now it has none, right? So it's relying on you to assign an automatic filter. So what we're gonna do now is you go here to rendering, right? Go down to exposure control, right? And we're gonna add an exposure control. So this way it knows how to balance out the light. So just go down to exposure control here, and under this tab, go down to V-Ray exposure control, the last setting here. And then under V-Ray exposure control here, under mode, change the mode to from V-Ray camera. Change those two things. That's gonna set up an automatic exposure control for your scene. Now we can close this, open this again here, and render again. Okay, so now it's good, Can you? I don't know how you guys can see, but can you see what's happening here? What do we see here?
Yeah, we can see that.
So, I mean, again, the sun right now is completely flat on the horizon line, which means it's just past sunset, right? Or before sunrise, right? So that means that it's very early in the morning. And the funny thing is the way this sun works here, right? The sun automatically corrects itself depending on the angle of the sun. So what that means here is that, let me see if I can do an example here. Okay, how do I do this? Okay, let's say the sun path is like this. Right? Right now, we're completely flat here, right? When the sun moves to here, right? Then to here, then to here, right? So this is the target, it's gonna go here, then it's gonna go here, the sun, right? So for this sun, it doesn't matter if the actual, sun is right here, right? Or if you put it right here, it doesn't really matter, The only thing that it cares about is the angle of the sun. So this angle here, right? So if the angle is flat, that means the sun is it's almost like it's off, right? When the angle goes up, let's say 15 degrees or whatever you find to this angle, it's gonna start to give the sun more intensity and give it a more orange color because it's sunset or sunrise. So as it goes higher here, okay, we double the intensity against the sun, and the light becomes less orange and more yellow, right? So as the sun goes up here all the way to noon, as you change the angle, the lighting changes automatically, right? And also the sun intensity will change automatically from very mild lighting to stronger lighting as it goes higher, right? Does that make sense for you guys?
Yeah.
So it's not so much, how close the sun is. So if the sun is here, or it's here, or it's here, it doesn't really matter. All that it cares about is the angle of the sun to the ground, right? So right now in our shot here, the sun is right here, right? And we can see a slight profile here, right? Maybe it looks like a bit of a orange or purple here, or reddish, and almost black here for the sky. So there is some light that's extremely dim, right? So let me erase everything here. So let's do a quick, let's see the change of this. So what I'm gonna do here is close this. So this rendering tab, again, we'll go into more detail because there's a lot of settings here that we're gonna eventually use, not right now because these are advanced settings. But the one thing that's important for us is this setting over here, right? This is the region, right? Region means that instead of taking the entire rendering, I can choose to select a small portion to render next. And what I wanna do here is render the sun as little slivers here to see what happens to the scene as the sun gets higher into the sky. So I'm gonna put region here, and I'm gonna pick, let's say, come on, yes. Let's see here, there. So this first one here, right, was the sun being, let's say, at 0 degrees, right, on the ground. This one here, before I go to render, I'm gonna move my sun here, and let's see if we can go to better view here. I'm gonna move it a little bit in the sky, like this. Okay, a little bit up. This sky is, will change here, but this is not very accurate, so don't worry about this guy here. All right, for now. So let's go here. Now we moved it up a little bit there. Let's go back here. Make sure you're in the right viewport and render again. So we get a lot more light right there. Let's try again. Take this sun here. Make it a little higher. Like that. One second. Come on. And we'll do another region over here, this part. Much brighter, right? Like that. And for the last one, let's just make one more change here and we'll do the whole shot here. This is maybe like, I don't know, 11 a.m. in the morning. But this for you guys, could be a nice experiment to add to the portfolio. So if you take these shots, maybe you divide them equally into 5 shots, each time make the sun, higher. And let me take our final shot here. You can showcase, right, the change of light, from, let's say, the sun being completely flat to early morning, let's say like 6 a.m., I don't know, 10 a.m., maybe noon, right? And you see how the light is changing. The sky is also changing in color. So this could be, once this is done here, right, this rendering like this, you see here the button, the save button, just hit save, right? We're going to save it as a JPEG file, like this, JPEG. Give it a name, right? You hit save. And here, the quality, make it the best, like this, right? Make it the best, and do okay. And that's it, save it. That'll save your settings. So do that, for this rendering, right? The thing, this is one of the first ones that I'll request for the next class is one showing the sun progression through here, right? So if you want to do more breakups here, that's fine too. Yes. Okay. But
Hi,
now,
Professor. Can I ask a quick question?
sure.
This, thank you. This, I guess, like screen that you're showing the different lots of light. Is that like a default poster size, or how would you change that, or how would you know also like? Because I mean, it's kind of like printing. It would just depend on if you are planning to have that image like on your screen or printed or email.
Yes.
Does that make sense what I'm trying to ask?
At the beginning, yes, I lost you towards the end. Again, don't ask me again. Sorry. So you're saying about how I made this over here with the little strips?
The overall rectangle, like from the black all the way to the right.
Yes.
That's a predetermined size, or you
Yes.
can manipulate that
No,
size?
yes. Well, that's the side that we set up over here. So if I go here to the render setup here, and under common here, I use from the output size, I use the one called VistaVision, and I use this one here, 1024 by 683. That's our default size or default proportion for this shot over here.
Okay. Okay. Yes. Yes.
So once you set up that size, you're gonna have to always have it there unless you go back to the source here and change this, or maybe change to a different proportion. But for this class, we should all use VistaVision and start by 1024 by 683 for this one.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem. Again, anything, just please stop me. Yes. So again, yeah, this will be one render you guys should make because it will tell a good story for the portfolio about the quality of light here, right? So right now I did 1, 2, 3, 4. Maybe you do 6 different equal space, slivers here, showing the light source going up through here, right? But let's say, to see the whole space here. So, and you see here this kind of white background here, right? That is trying to do an estimated. Sorry, my voice is giving out. Second, I'm drinking tea at the same time. All right, so this white area here, right? That is meant to be the sky. Of course, it doesn't look in anything like this sky over here, because this is a render view, right? Here is what we can do. Here is we can try to we can estimate also the background here. So let's see what we have here. So right now this viewport is it's weird, right? It looks white here. If you go under the standard tab right here, right, and you see we have here V-Ray viewport IPR, right? The IPR is going to generate an estimated view of what it's going to look like when it renders. So it gives you a preview of the rendering, almost like this one, before you actually hit render. So if you go here, right, again, under standard, and again, do it only in this view. Don't do it in any of the other ones because that adds more stress to the computer. So in this view, which is your camera view, you can go to standard, go to V-Ray viewport IPR and click that and wait a second, right? See, it made a new view here with a very, look at that. It's almost exactly, come on, it's almost very close to the final rendering, right? And once you're happy with the results here, then you can render, right? So it gives you a very nice estimated viewport view of your final shot. And we can see the sky here. Let's say we take the sun here and we bring it lower here. You see, as I move the sun, it's rebuilding the scene here and trying to make an updated estimate. So when I go down again, right? It goes from very much pixelated, little by little it will change. You see how the sky is starting to change from blue to orange? When I go down here more. There we go, we get more orange. Let's keep going here. But like that, right? And now we're down into sunset like this. Again, this setting is not really required, I'm not sure if it's going to, it might make your computer work a little slower, right? So, you might not want to keep it on all the time, right? Because every time you move the sun, it's going to have to recreate the scene. You can always just deactivate it here again. And whenever you need it, just go here under views. If you're happy, then turn it off. Unless your computer is pretty fast, then I will keep it on all the time because whatever change you make, it will have to, again, figure out all the settings from the beginning. So like here, if I go here, again, it's figuring out everything. But overall, it's a good preview to give you an idea of the rendering before you hit render, right? And before you commit to that rendering that might take 10 or 20 minutes to create, it's pretty good with that. So that's the pretty much basics of the sun here. Again, if this sun is like this, it doesn't matter, right? All that matters is the angle of the sun. Right? Also, with the sun here, let's see here. So right now our sun is over here, right? So we can see that. So we can kind of estimate where the shadows are going to be, right? They're going to be over here, right? So I want to look also at the shadows for our scene. So let's see. There's my camera, right? If I want to get shadows in front of the camera, looks like I got to turn the sun the other way. There. Okay. And now I'm going to play with my camera here. You see the viewport, how every time it needs to rebuild itself? That's relying on your computer's graphics card. So if it's not very strong graphics card, it's going to slow it down. Even my computer, it does slow it down a bit. But yeah. So let me go a little closer here. I'm going to move the camera a little bit lower in the ground because I really want to talk about shadows now. Come on. Almost there. Okay, that looks pretty good, I think. And let's make this bigger here. Okay, so I'm relying again. If you make the viewport bigger, it's gonna put a bigger stress on the computer, but I think mine should be okay. So, but we can look at the shadows now, right? Here, right? So otherwise, if this is off, then you will have to first render like this, right? Let it, move to the whole rendering, whatever that might take, and then we can inspect the final rendering. And when it renders, this is gonna come up. This is just a little progress bar. And it gives it here like an estimated time, about 40 seconds to render the shot, right? And again, this is all data. It tells you here the size of the rendering, things that you probably don't need. But typically when this is done, then when this bar is finished moving, then the renderings is done completely. And we're good, yes. There we go. So right now, see, it turned off because, it is eating up computer strength. So if I want to see it, if I really want to see here, we have to go back here to standard and set it up again, right? But let's look at this over here, right? So how do shadows work, right? And you see this preview here, it's okay, right? But the final render version is a lot better. It's more precise in the quality here, right? And you see here with the shadows, when the shadow is very close to the source, right, it tends to be darker and much sharper. As the shadow starts to go farther away, right, from the source, what happens to it? Here.
It vanishes.
Yes, but it becomes more what?
Lighter.
Yes, lighter and less sharp. It becomes more blurry, right? So although that's real life, shadows definitely, as they're close to the source, they're sharp. As they go farther away, they get blurry. That's how they work. But because we're in 3D Max, and we have control of everything, we can change that. We can say, no, I want them to be all very sharp. No, I want it to be all very blurry. We can assign those settings to fine tune our rendering. So this is why 3D Max is good and bad, because it gives you a way to modify everything, right? So those things, so let's say here, okay, let's say that I want to make the shadows sharper because, I don't like how they're very blurry here. So how do we change that? To change the shadow quality, we have to go to the sun. So here's the sun, right? So I'm going to click on the sun, right? And we're going to go here to the properties of the sun. And there's a lot of properties here. For now, we're going to focus only on this top area, which is the sun parameters. So the first button here it says enabled, and there's a little check mark, right? If you look at my sun right now, it's yellow, right? If I click on the sun and I click on the check mark enabled, the sun turns black. So what did I just do? I turn the sun off, right? So if the sun is black, it means it's off. So I go back here, turn it on again. It's back, right? The next setting below that is called intensity, right? Intensity is the strength of the sun. The setting of 1 is a default setting, and it works good most of the time. Sometimes, if you want to make the sun stronger, you put 2, right? If you want to make it less, you put 0.5. You can do 1.1. You can really fine tune this here. But if I put here in the sun, let's say 5, right? 5 means it's going to make the sun 5 times as stronger in intensity. Let's see if it gives you a preview. There you go, right? So right now, even though I have a light balance added, so remember that one here before to rendering and exposure control, that is set up only for the default setting of 1, right? Once you put 5 here, then now you're making everything brighter, so I can't handle those settings. So for outside, doesn't really work, If you were inside and you want more sunlight through the window, then you might go back here and increase the sun intensity. But otherwise, I would keep it 1 for most of the time. That second setting here called size multiplier, right? That controls, the quality of the shadows, right? So 1 is the default setting, right? If you go lower with the numbers, that makes the shadows sharper. If you go higher, it makes them more blurry. So let's say that I want really, really sharp shadows, everything to be straight, right? Let's say I'll do here 0.1. Again, 1 is the default setting. Let's do 0.1. And let's do a rendering here. Let's render again and see how it looks. You see a difference?
Yeah, definitely.
Big difference, right? So again, it doesn't mean you're gonna make this extreme change, but sometimes you might say, okay, I want a little bit more. So instead of 1, maybe I'll do 1.1, right? But let's do now an extreme, So if we do, let's say 10, right, which is an extreme number, how does 10 look for our rendering? So we pretty much have almost no shadows left, That is right. So again, it gives you that control, right? Of course, if all the shadows are sharp, does that look realistic?
No, not exactly.
No. If everything's sharp, then it's gonna look fake because our eyes are used to seeing shadows every day, and we're used to a more abstract shadow. So yes, maybe I'll go to 1.3, right? If you want to, move this line here, you might go to 0.9, but don't go too far out because then it looks really fake, But you do want to always see in shadows. You want to see them start sharp and slowly blur out more. And of course, this blurriness here, really, it's created by the sun's angle. When the sun is very low on the horizon line, like a sunset or sunrise, they're very blurry because the sun is very low to the horizon line. When the sun is very high up in the sky, you get much stronger light. So I mean, the sun will be that shadows much stronger, right? but it always looks good when you add a little bit of blurriness to the shadow. So sometimes, if it's a nice bright day, you might still make it like 1.3 to get a little bit more shadow, blurriness here in the scene here. So yeah, just keep that in mind. That's a good setting to have for the shadows here. I'll keep it back to 1 here. The next tab here is filter color, right? So right now it's white, right? White means it's a neutral filter, right? So why would I want to change the filter color of my sun? What could be the reason for it?
To change the feeling, like the temperature of the rendering.
Yes, but maybe you want to emphasize a certain atmosphere, right? Like what?
Yeah, like warmth.
Yes. Maybe, you're making a scene that is sunset, right? And you want to make more of this kind of warm orange glow, right? So you could go here, right? And let's say I'm going to make a filter that is, I don't know, let's go here by orange here. And we're going to give it this kind of orange color, right? So now the light is passing through a filter, right? And then afterwards, what do we create? Let's see here. So, the light now has it's going to be a warmer tone, right? Which is nice. It will soften out the rendering, especially if you're going for that effect of the sunset. That's one reason to use it. Again, you could also make it really any color you want. So you could make the light also, I don't know, green, right? Why? I'm not sure, but if you make the light green, then you get something like this, right? Maybe you're trying to estimate, I don't know, a green spotlight or something very strong, right? But yeah, that could be one option. Otherwise, I would keep it as white, which would be neutral. Then we have here color mode, filter. So there's filter, there's direct, and there's override. So let's do a quick sample here. Filter. Let's go here and render this one here. And let's see here. So this thing, we don't have to always let it finish towards the end. At this point, it's already pretty close enough that we can just cancel it, right? What I want to do here is create, again, options for you guys to see. So I'm going to pick the sun again. And this one here is filter. I'm going to do now direct. And like before, do a region, right? I'm going to pick maybe half the scene here. And this scene will be rendered under direct. See if you guys can spot the difference, right? Well, this one's pretty obvious. Okay, let's cancel this one again. Let's do one more time. Let's go here to overwrite. And that'll be this last one here. Okay, so we have 3 different versions here, right? We have the direct. Let's see if I forgot the names. The first one here is filter, direct, and overwrite. Do you see, some slight differences or no? This is a little bit more blue, the sky. This is kind of less strong, the light. So, I mean, I tend to use everything in filter, so I will leave it there. The one that has a bit more of a change is the next one here, the sky parameters, right? So the sky, right? The sky is a big thing in our renderings. Right now, the sky here, there's different skies, The first one is called, and again, these things are hard to pronounce, it's called Pritam et al. This one here. So I'm going to render this with this sky here. That is the first sky that we have, right? So it gives you a nice kind of blue sky here, okay? Let's go to the second one here. This one's called CIE clear. So this is like a clear blue sky. This piece over here. It gave you a little bit more brightness in the sky. Hopefully you guys were able to see that. The next sky is called CIE overcast, right? So overcast sky, it'll be imagining a cloudy day. So that gives you a kind of a dark cloud setting sense. The sun here is kind of more of a gray color, So it's more like a, sad day, cloudy gray tones here for the scene, right? So this, if you're going for like a cloudy day scene, right, for example. Then we have one called Hosek et al. Let me do it for this one here at the end. That one gives you a more of a bluish, greenish tone to the sky, right? You see that the sky compared to this one here, right? And then the last one here that we have here is one called here. It's called PRG Clear Sky. Let me do it over here. Do a little piece over here. So PREG Clear Sky. There we go. So these are all our kind of default sky models that we can use, right? So what can we do here? We can choose, skies that are a bit more white, a bit more blue, a bit more, this is more like cyan, more blue here, deeper towards like purple, a gray tone sky, right? Not for clouds, right? This has no clouds. This is a completely clear sky, not overcast, but we can set up this different sky model. So what you could do here is once you start rendering, you could try the different sky models here to see which one you think your building looks better under, right? I like to use, I believe is this one here, which is the CIE Clear Sky. But sometimes I'll switch between those as we go here. So you guys try the ones that you guys, which one do you guys like better? Maybe you'll get your opinion for this. Which looks to you like a more realistic sky?
The one to the right.
Well, let's say, so this is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. What number?
5.
This one here, the darker sky. Okay. So yeah, so this is that. Yeah, so this sky, this is PRG Clear Sky. Okay. So yeah, so the sun is still fairly low on the ground. So let's say if we make the sun higher, like this, right? That means that the sky should get brighter. Let's see here. Yes, so it's not too bad. All right, so let's leave down for now. We'll leave the PRG sky. We can always go back to the other ones. All right, so these are the models that are that we have here as default settings that we might use that don't have any clouds, right? We are able to create clouds here, right? There's different ways to make the sky, and we'll look at different ways, throughout the semester. But the first way here is through simply the default settings, right? So let's say here, let me go with this one here. I'll do again standard and V-Ray viewport IPR. You get a preview. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to click here on the sky, right? And if you keep going down here, this is the sky parameters, right? This one we're not going to use, right? We're not going to use that. But here, towards the end, this is right now turned off, right? It's called clouds, right? So this is to generate actual clouds. These clouds are physical models. That means that the clouds will create shadows from the sun, right? So, and you have all these controls to control, do you want to make it more puffy? Do you want to make them higher in the sky, lower in the sky? Do you want to make them bigger, right? You want to make a sub-layer of clouds that are higher in the atmosphere. That's all can be done here, right? So what I would do here is first of all, I would turn the clouds on, right? These settings. And before I modify anything here, because these are my default settings, take a picture. Because sometimes you start moving things here and you forget, what you touched here. So take a picture. These are default settings, right? There we go. So there's the clouds, right? Those default settings. And these clouds, are meant to be realistic, right? So if I go to render here, there it is. Wait, we got to do the whole thing. There, right? But of course, with the clouds here, the nice thing is, let me just, so you guys can see better. I'm gonna make this viewport bigger so you can see here. So I want to be able to keep touching the sun here, so I can modify it here. And I want to do here standard viewport IPR. Okay, there we go. So now I can look at my nice viewport here in real time. I can click in the sun and I can modify it. So let's say here we do density is 0.5. Let's say I make it I don't know, 1.5 or 1, right? What changed in my sky? It's now almost like cloudy there, right? So there's almost can't see the blue sky anymore. And we lost almost all the shadows here, right? So we do have some small shadows here, but those are ambient shadows, right? So, that controls the, we can do 1 point, no, we can do 0.6. Yes, we get more clouds there. Density multiplier. So default setting is 1. Let's do 1.5. Do 2. Didn't change. Nothing much there. 3. Where can I go? Don't see much change there. Variety, 0.3. So let's make it 1. All right, so that's, see, it starts to change the pattern of the clouds, right? So 0.5. Right. Seed we don't need, this is pretty cool. This is the cirrus amount. So cirrus are those clouds that are on the upper atmosphere. So right now it's 0.2. If I make 0.5, you should see clouds that are happening here. Imagine the upper atmosphere. I'll do 0.5. They're starting to show up right there. Let's do 1. There they are. You see them? So these are clouds on a higher setting, right? Higher altitude, pretty much. Okay. You have height of the clouds, 1,000, right? So cloud thickness, right now it's 500. Let's say we do 700 here. It makes the clouds kind of more puffy. So pretty much that's what it's doing, right? I'm gonna put this back to 0.3. I forgot what it was. 0.5. So yeah, so you see how you can really make clouds, and this might add to the rendering times, but I guess it's one option because eventually you want to be able to create rendering that have different atmospheres. So this is probably our first atmosphere, which is simply just clouds and sky. Eventually we'll do other ones that are based on photographs, right? And then one more that is based on HDRI images, which are high dynamic range images, right? So there's 3 different ways that we can achieve. Each one is more advanced than the other. This is our starting ground for making, a simple, beautiful sky, and it does a pretty good job, of making these skies in our scene here. Let's see here. Any questions up to now? How are you finding all these settings here? Confusing,
It's
difficult?
very clear. For the clouds, it's very clear.
Yeah, okay. All right, let's see what else we can do here. And again, at any time also you can just if you want to turn the clouds off, you can just press here the little check button here to turn them off like this. We can keep them there. So yeah, this is one nice setting that we have here with the sun, right? If we go back to the camera here, right? Remember that I said for this camera, we're gonna use a lens of 24 millimeters. So I'm picking right now my camera target. So my camera, the actual camera, sorry. And we go here under the properties of the camera. Here, lens is 24 millimeters, right? That's this view here, right? Imagine the lens is 10 millimeters. What happens? There, right? So things are starting to become, so typically everything along the outer edges of the camera start to become stretched, right? So, once you go past 10 millimeter, then now you're into like a fisheye lens. So if you do 5 millimeters, we can see more, right? But everything's gonna stretch out, right? So a good range between 20 and 24, right? And then if you really want to zoom into something here, you can do obviously 50. We can zoom because we can technically, there's 2 ways to zoom in, right? You can zoom in by the camera, right? Like playing with the numbers here, or you can just zoom in by just actually clicking on the camera and moving the camera closer, right? So there's 2 ways you can zoom in here. I like to pretty much just keep all my cameras at 24 millimeter, and if I have to get closer, then I just move the camera closer or farther away to to create my shots here. All the other numbers here we can ignore. We're never gonna use them. We don't need them for architecture. All we care about is the lens size, and we're always gonna use between 20 and 24 millimeters to capture a precise scene that we have. Okay. All right, good. So that covers, cameras, lighting, atmosphere, and now we can start to render, right, and capture the things that we do in class, right? Those are the nice things that we, that we have for today. Okay. So today's class, this is the first part of the class, right? The second part, is we're gonna discuss, applying basic materials, to this, right? So there'll be different classes, because we have basic materials, advanced materials, I think there's 2 advanced materials classes, you know, and then the last one is our V-Ray materials that are actually part of the V-Ray package, you know. And it's good to know all of them because you might not always find your material as part of V-Ray materials. Sometimes you're working with a custom material from the site, you know, or it's not documented, and you have to actually, look around outside 3D Max for a material. So it's good to know how to make it yourself, right? And then, of course, you can also rely on other more basic ones like concrete, that are already pre-made within, the software. So we'll learn, from basic to very advanced techniques for the materials here. Do you guys need a break before we change topics, or it's up to you guys? If you need a break, we can take a 10-minute break, and then we can switch gears and discuss a little bit of basic materials.
Yeah, I
Break
think
was
we'll be
nice.
good.
Okay, let's take a break. Okay, so let's
Sounds
do a
good.
10-minute break. It's 12:42, so we'll be back like at 12:52, and we'll keep going, guys. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, guys, let's continue here. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
All right, so let's continue here, and we're gonna change a little bit topics just now to look at materials. So this will be our first class on basic materials for 3D Max, right? So, which means that we're gonna have to find our own materials, right? Which is not hard to do, but before that, I want to set up here some basic shapes. These are pretty complex. So really, at this point, I don't want to test out materials with these things because these are fairly, unrealistic materials for these things. So we'll use just the basics cubes, right? So I'm gonna make this a cube over here. And this time, I do want to make those cubes a bit more real with scale. These things were not to scale. We're just building things. So I want to make a cube that, that is maybe 5 by 5. So 5 feet by 5 feet by 5 feet. So I'm gonna make it 5 feet. We can see that it's a lot smaller than our scene. And 5 feet here. Why? Because, when you apply materials, you have to keep in mind, that this should be applied to something that is roughly to scale, right? And this is why it's important that when you come to 3D Max, when you go to customize here, like we spoke last time, and you go to unit setup, it's important you're working in feet, right? If you're working in metrics, you're working in decimals, and you're the wrong size, then not everything's gonna apply properly in the material sense. So for now, we're just gonna work with a proper scale. So let's say we have here 5 feet, and then we can always take this box here and copy it a few times here. So let's do a shift here, right? Let's copy it 4 more times as a copy because this should be all independent. So we have 5 things that we can use to practice materials, right? In that sense. So where are we gonna get the materials from, right? So I want you guys to go to this site, which is free, right? It's called SketchUp Textures Club, right? Even though it says it's for SketchUp, they have a beautiful library of materials. They're all free, right? Of course, you can pay here if you want to, and get a little bit higher quality, but that doesn't really make sense. The ones that are free here are more than good enough for any rendering. So, log in. It'll be through your account. I think I have it set up for my school account. Yeah, maybe there. And it's a free account, right? So, use your Gmail account or whatever, even school works. So log into this.
Wait, quick question.
Yeah.
Is there any scenario where like buying the texture makes sense, or is just
No,
really better?
because right now, first of all, 3D Max already has a nice package of materials that we can use eventually. The ones here, and let me show you here. So there's 2 things, the free version and the paid version. The paid version, the only difference is that it's double the resolution, right? But for what you get for the free one, I've never had any problem with that quality. It's already pretty good quality. So to go from that to a little bit higher quality, it makes no difference, at all. So let's say if I go here to I go here to log in, I go here to textures, right? You do get some ads, but then you go down here to here architecture, right? It's a very nice library of things here. We have bricks, buildings, concrete, panels, roads, all these things we can check here. Tiles. So let's say we go here to like bricks, right? then there's more subcategories. There's color bricks, damaged bricks, dirty bricks, all different things, or special bricks, right? So we go here to say special bricks. So we have all, and the nice thing about everything here is that everything here is a seamless material, as we discussed before, right? What does a seamless material mean? That's the key thing for textures. What does it mean when something is seamless?
That it's like continuous.
Exactly, yes. Because, when you go to apply material, let's say to a building, right? And let's say that your entire building is brick, right? Um, you know, you're not uploading a photograph of the entire facade, with the brick, right? You're only uploading a small piece of the brick, right? Let's say here, for example, I have one here. This is a small piece of some type of stone right here. Oops. Let's see here. This, right? Only a small chunk. It's not the whole stone because, imagine how big that file will have to be, this, the whole thing stone. So what you do is you, let's see if I can give an example here. What can I use here? What do I have here that I can use? Photoshop, maybe. Okay, let's try Photoshop.
So
While that
basically,
goes,
when you render the image or when you render the object, you won't see like the ending line of where
Yes,
that image is
exactly.
like being
Yes.
duplicated.
So let me give an example here. Let me see. I'm opening a new page in my Photoshop, and then I'll show you guys. New. I need this landscape. No, why is it making okay? New landscape, right? 17 width. Okay. So here's very simple Photoshop page, right? Again, the only thing is I want to be able to, and I'm going to take this material here that that I have, and just drag it into here. Let's say I have put here, right? You see, this is only this is somebody took a picture of this material. And this material is seamless. This is actually a very difficult one to achieve because the lines here are organic. That means that it's not like a brick where everything is kind of horizontal and straight. You can easily align things. This is a tough one to actually do here. So if I take this material here, let's say, and I copy it to here, right? There, right? And imagine like this whole white space, it's a wall that you need to cover with brick, sometimes, this material is only so big, you could go here and do Control T, and you could stretch this thing to fit the wall, right? Which is not really, I've seen it happen, but it's not good because it's not really the right scale, right? What you're trying to do is create the same material to cover the entire space. So it relies on just one section of material being copied over and over again, on all sides, kind of spreading radially here to make the illusion of a bigger material from a small clip, of this. So if I do here, Control A, Control Copy, Control V, and I make a duplicate here, when I copy the same one next to this one here, what's going to happen? Everything needs to match perfectly, right? You see, it looks like it's now continuous, right? If I copy the same little piece over here, right? Or up here, or up here, this is a very little piece of material. But once we're, and now I may copy to the bottom here, this is something seamless. That means that wherever you copy it, now I step back, it just looks like something that has been, I mean, of course, if you look carefully, you're gonna spot, repeating patterns, right? Like one here, one here, one here, one here, one here. But you really have to look closely. This is a very nice one, that shows the complexity of trying to align the 4 different faces, that wherever you put in, they match perfectly. And, and this is the idea of material. A small section creates a bigger section that all it's doing is just adding more pieces to make it look like a bigger wall or a smaller wall. That's really the way it works. And making one yourself, it's tough. You do have to go to Photoshop. You have to copy them here and work with the alignments here. But it's done. It's definitely possible here. But if you go to the site here, everything here is seamless. So there's no need to do anything. And they have here almost anything that I could use here. So and when you get something here, say I like I don't know. Let's see, what can we do here? Let's say we like this one here, special break. Here. It gives you two options. It gives you the download one, which is 1,000 by 1,000 pixels, right? And then the paid one is only 2,000 by 2,000. So it's not really that it's, it's not that much better. It's only double, which is, and then when you download here, just download, it'll be a zip file. So you can unzip it, and then, I did this before, and I kind of got all these different things. I picked some concrete floor, some tiles, some stone, some wood, some grass, some pavers, and some concrete wrap. So I was kind of looking at different things I like, So, go here later on, and, just try to download different things that are typical for architecture. Stone, concrete, tile, wood floors, grass, pavers, pick whatever you want, we're just, and everything here is, again, do the free version here for this thing. So once you have that, our job now is to map those materials here to, these shapes, right? To see how they map, right? So let's see here. I'm going to start, with this stone one that we have here, that one we did the little experiment here, right? So we have to make our first basic material. And once you make one, the rest becomes a lot easier because we can do a bit of copy and paste in those elements. But let's make a first one here. So we're going to go to the material tab, and it's right here, right? This one here, this window here. And let me just give me 1 second. Okay, when it loads, it's going to load like this, right? This is a fairly complex view. So when this thing loads here, just do one change very quickly, go to modes and go to compact material editor, right? That's going to give more of the default view where you have all this little, spheres that is more recognizable by other, softwares like, Lumion, Rhino, AutoCAD, for example. So these are all individual slots where we could eventually add materials, right? And we'll talk about those things, in the future. But for now, let's start with the top left here. This will be our first material. And because we are using a V-Ray engine to render, right? We have to make a V-Ray material. These ones here by default are not V-Ray. These are just physical materials, which is the basic ones. So let's go here to our first one here and set up a V-Ray basic material. So the first tab here is Get Material. So click on this tab. Then here you want to scroll down. You have General here, you have Scanline, and you have V-Ray. So under V-Ray, we're going to start with a basic one called here, V-Ray MTL. That's your basic default material that we can start doing things. So it's called V-Ray MTL. Just double click it, and it's going to load it directly into this tab. Make sure you're clicking already to the top left tab. Then we can close that. So this will be our first material. And you see here on the right side, it says V-Ray material. So that's good. The first thing you want to always do is give it a name, right? So I'm going to do a stone. So I'm going to call this stone wall. And it's very important for them to all have a unique name. Sometimes, you forget to change the name or you give the same name and you might see that it starts to flicker because it is not sure which one to assign, So that's the first key thing is give it a nice name, right? And there's a lot of settings here, right? We'll go to those settings in time, right? More into an advanced class, but today we're going to stick to the basics, right? Which means we're only going to cover this first tab over here, right? And this first tab over here, first of all, controls only a few things because we only care about this one here. Diffuse, right? Whenever you hear the word diffuse, right? That is what you're going to see here in the material, right? So right now the diffuse here, let's say we make it red, or this one here. This red is the actual red here. So if I want to make this box, right? So I want to apply this red to this box here, right? How do I do, right? There's two ways, right? You can drag it and drop it, which now is very easy because it's only one up box. When things get more complex and you have multiple, let's say, elements, you can first select the box and then go here to apply material. It's called assign material to selection, which is simple, right? So right now, this diffuse thing just controls what the material looks like, whether it's blue, whatever color you pick, that's your material. Yeah. So for now, we're going to skip all this here and move all the way down to maps, right? And you see, we have also a diffuse name for maps, right? Because on top here, the diffuse is the color. On the bottom here, the diffuse will be that selected material, right? And once you put something here, right, in this map, that's going to override the color, right, that you have here with whatever you assign here. So if we go here to no map, right, and here we have to go, so go down here, scroll down, until you see general. Once you see general, go down to bitmap. So double click on bitmap. It's gonna open up your folder here. Again, scroll down to wherever you save those materials. Let me find that. 1 second. Okay, so here we go. So mine are saved over here, right? Here's all my basic materials that I did, right? And I was gonna start with this one here. Looks like a stone, right? So I'm gonna click this one here, double click it. And you see now it's replaced from that one. And I can also click on this box here, right? I can go double click here if I want to inspect the material, right? And I can make it bigger or smaller, right? Like that. And we see, it gives you a nice preview of the material. If you go up here, it's still, purple, but you see next to the purple, right? There's a little M, right? And you see the ones here have nothing, right? So when there's no M here, that means that it's gonna default to this color, right? But when you see an M, which means material, it means that there's something down here loaded under the diffuse tab, in this case, a map, right? Which is this one here, right? So now this becomes, that will overwrite the color of the, from the top part. So that's the basic idea of the material, right? How did that sound? Anybody confused?
I think it's pretty similar to what we see like in most of the modeling softwares, like
Yeah.
Rhino, CAD, or
It
Revit.
should be yes, yeah. I mean, they all share some idea or some similarity in that sense. All right, so now see now this updated automatically, right? And now we have this material applied here. Again, right now it's not scaled, right? It's just simply applied, right? And of course, when you wrapped the material, it should look pretty good, when it wraps here. Of course, when you go to the top, it's not because you're changing, direction. So, not everything's gonna map properly. But typically, as it goes around the material, it should be pretty good because it's a continuous wrap. Once it goes to the top and bottom, it's gonna break that wrap, right? All right, and now let's look at the other next thing here. How do we scale the material? So actually, let me learn one more thing here. So I want to focus only on this material, right? I don't like this kind of pink stuff back here. So because sometimes I select it by mistake. So you can also isolate elements here. So if I pick this box, right, and I right click it, I can do isolate selection. That means now I'm focused only on this box here, like that, right? And if this white background annoys you, right, because it's too bright, you can always go here to default shading, right? You can go to viewport background and go to gradient color. That makes it, for me, better. The white is kind of, it hurts your eyes after too much time. So there's now, this one here. Again, you can always go here, right click it again and do and isolate, go back, right? Click it again, right click it and isolate. So we can really focus here. Now, we want to apply to this box 2 modifiers because everything here is modifiers. One modifier is gonna tell the box, one modifier is going to tell 3D Max the basic shape of this box, right? The second modifier is gonna tell it to scale it, so we can scale it bigger or smaller. So why? Because sometimes, we have other shapes that are not boxes. We might have a sphere, a geosphere, a cylinder. So we're gonna select the box, right? Go to the properties tab over here, right? Go to the modifier list like we did before and scroll down all the way down to where you see UVW map, right? And this is, what this does, it tells 3D Max, the estimated shape of this, is it a planar shape? No. Is it something cylindrical? No. Is it spherical? No. Is it a shrink wrap? No. Is it a box? Yes. So it's a box shape, right? So it makes things more precise, especially once you go to scaling, right? So now it knows that it's a box shape, right? The second modifier you're gonna add now is one that's called map scalar. So if we go down here under M, here, map scalar, right? This modifier gives you a scale option and a kind of a U offset and a V offset, which helps you to adjust the material. So we can go here, right? And we can make it very big. We can now play with the scale here like this. And then if you want to have a certain alignment here, let's say that I want to move this thing up and down here, then we can go here to the V and to the U offset. And we can go like this, left and right a little bit here, up and down, to adjust it, the edges there. Again, this is not really a straight material, so it's not like break, it's not going to line perfectly, but we can make here minor adjustments, to this, and we can play with the scale here to make it bigger, smaller, to create, this shape here, right? So now we have a nice looking material here. We can do now and isolate here. And now we want to keep applying. So we have here how many shades? We have total 5, so I need 4 more materials. So the nice thing is once you make one material, the next tend to be fairly easy because we can do a bit of copy and paste, right? So let's say we have this one here, right? I'm going to drag it and copy it next door, right? First thing you do is change the name, right? So let's say this one I'm going to call, I don't know. What do we have here? Concrete tile, right? There, right? And then all we do here is go back here down to the maps, right? Click on map. Then go to the map parameters, which is the bitmap location here. It's going to take you to the folder, right? And I'm going to pick this concrete floor tile, right? So there it is, right? So now let me make everything here before I go. I'm going to copy again here, right? I'm going to call this one, let's see, blue tile. Go here to the map. Go to the location. I'm going to pick this blue tile. Copy it again. This one I'm going to call wood. Go back to the diffuse location. Go to the folder location. Let's do this one here. And let's do 2 more here. This is going to be concrete. Let's go here. This is concrete. And let's do 1 more here. This is going to be what? What else do I have? Let's do pavers. Yes, let's do pavers. This one here, so it's be pretty nice. There we have our 5 materials, right? You can collect all of them like this, see how kind of they look like. Again, you see right now making these viewports very big, the samples, very large here. For now, it's fine because these are basic materials. That means that right now these things don't have any glossiness, no reflections, and they're not transparent, right? Eventually, once we deal with things that are more complex like glass and steel, right, that are kind of, or like chrome, right, you never want to make them this big because when it makes it this big, that computer has to generate a preview. And when it's very complex, the object, the preview gets to be really, really complex and to the point that sometimes it has crashed my computer and it's pretty fast. So just don't forget that as long as your basic ones, it's fine to make it as big as you want. Once we jump to things that are more advanced, keep it small. All right, so we have now these things. So now let's assign those materials to here, right? So let's say we this box, we're going to put this one here, right? And you see by default, this material here, if we go to the actual source, right, of this material, this one here, it's just, 3 tiles by 3 tiles, right? It's simple. So what I did here, by default, it just stretched the material to be 3 by 3. So it fits perfectly like a Rubik's Cube, right? Once we apply the scale, then, because right now we can't modify this at all, right? But the nice thing here is that also let's say that we want to match the same scale as this one here, right? We can copy settings from here over to here, right? So let's say if we click here, right? And we go to the properties, we see that this one has a UVW map and a map scatter. But what I can do here is I can do first UV map and just drag it and drop it here, right? Next one, go back again to the main one, go to the map scatter, drag it and drop it here. And now we match the same scale as that one, right? So that's a good way so that you can save a couple steps with the scale, process here. Yes, this scale, maybe it's not the right scale, but you can always go back down here and fix the scale. And this is better because here is where I can really go, here close, and I can move these things here. I want to get this line to be perfectly on the edge here. Let's see, there. And this line a little higher, there. So we can fix this corner here, right? So now it looks pretty good, and you can see that it matches nicely around. On top, of course, now we can see that the lines are not matching. That would take a bit, of more work to try to make it, unified, but that's a different topic. Okay, let's apply the other ones here. This one here, right? Again, We can drag it, drop it here, right? We can drag it, drop it here, drag it, drop it here, right? We still have to apply, map scalar to all these ones. We can take this floor that we have now here. Let's drag this one, drop it there, right? This is definitely because see, it stretched that map to the entire floor. So now we can really see now how bad it is. And for this one, we definitely need to select that object, go to properties, assign a UVW map, give it this is pretty much a box shape, and then a map scalar. There we go. And we can see actually, it did pretty good job, really cannot see where this thing starts, where it ends, kind of very nice and seamless completely with the material. And we have a nice base for our, 5 little boxes that we have here, right? How's this looking, the process here? Okay. Any questions?
There's no like a step afterwards. Let's say we create a new material like you did with the first one, right? There's no other step like to save the settings that you're adding, like the modifiers or anything else like that. It does it automatically.
Maybe they're saved to that individual material. So let's say for here, they're saved to this, right? Because, oh no, they're saved to the object, I'm sorry. So this is just a material, right? So when you apply this material to, let's say, this one here, right? The box is the main object, right? And then we have, the 2 modifiers here. So imagine the box as layers, right? These 2 map scalar and UV map are only saved to the box, right? We could take him, and drag him and drop him here, if you want to add him to the next material, right? Like if you want to, if I want this box to have the same scale as that one, I can click in this box. I can drag the UV map to here, right? I can click in the box again, and I can drag the scale here, and it's gonna match the scale to that one. But that's all you can do. There's no other step for saving it in that sense. I mean, it'll save to the file, to the scene, and such things, but that's pretty much it.
Got it. So like the scaling is individual by object, not by material
Yes,
in this
exactly.
case.
Exactly. Yes, it's by object. Yes, exactly. Yes, that's a good observation. Yes. Any other questions? No? Okay. I mean, and again, these are basic shapes that we have, over here, this shape, in real life, it wouldn't be stone, right? I mean, it could be tile. This shape, maybe, yes. I mean, it's you can also try to apply stuff to this one here and see what it looks like, right? So this one I see more of concrete, right? And this one here that I have here is this concrete, which is more of the kind of Tadao Ando, concrete, which is very, concrete panels like this. So let's say that I apply to this one here. So, I'm gonna drag it here. Let's isolate this one here. Oops. Yes, so select this one here. You see, when you first drag it here, it's gonna look strange. You see how this is all being kind of dragged out, not really precise here. First of all, it has no idea what this shape looks like, and this is the hard one because it's not a shape that is, but that is here. So we have to say, what is the closest shape to this? So when we go here to this object and we go to the properties and we go to UVW map, right? It's not a planar, it's not a cylinder, it's not a spherical. Shrink wrap, no, that's looking at the spherical box. It still will be a box shape. So, for the most part, it's a geometric shape. So a box shape still works best for this one. And then once we do the map scalar, that does a better job here. So we can start to see how these lines move up, now we can kind of play with the scale here to make the panels bigger. I mean, there'll be some mistakes here. You see how, these things are not lining up here. But again, this is a fairly complex shape here to apply this. And yeah, there's really no way to make this align unless you kind of explode this shape, and every panel is treated as an individual plane. And then you will have to go individually and scale every panel to each other, which will take an insane amount of time. So for here, I would say, you would do your best. And again, this is meant to be a massing model, so it's not meant to be as detailed. Eventually, obviously, if it becomes a building, then you have more control of, windows, openings, and there's more control of the shapes, right? But for now, it's a general shape that, looks good as a concrete shape like this, right? So that could be something you can try for that. Something like this, that'll be a tough shape to create because maybe we can try wood here. Let's see here. And have the wood kind of wrap around. Well, it looks weird, but let's see. Let's select it. Let's give it a UV map, right? We can assign a different one, more complex one. UVW map, right? So we have planar, no. Cylindrical, no. Spherical, maybe. Shrink wrap. Yeah, this is box, no way. Face. Oh, face is still this. But, let's give it a bit of scale before, and then we go back to this one here. Let's go to map scaler. Okay. So now we got a scale here, and ooh, I just completely killed my computer. So don't do that. Wow. Okay. So this is where automatic backup will save you. All right, guys. So don't do that at any complex shape. That my computer is very fast, but I just killed it. Okay, let me just reload this, and now we can practice how to bring the file back. So stick to the basic ones. All right, we're almost done here. Let me just bring this back here. And
Professor, I got a question.
yeah.
You see how you're working like with cubes? Is there a way to apply a material by face instead of to the entire cube?
Yes, you will have to first explode the cube, and break it up into individual faces. That's something you
Okay.
can. Yeah. We can look at that, yes. All right, so right now, I lost my file, right? So, it crashed. So if that happens to you guys, you have to go to, I think we spoke in the first class about setting up the auto backup, right? So if you go to, it's at My Documents, right? If you go to My Documents, right, which is here, and we have max 25, we have here auto back, right? We have here, let me do, so the latest, let me do F5 here to refresh. The latest file that was saved, so right now it's 123. The last file that was saved was not that long ago, 1210, 1232, 1232. Yeah, so that's not good. Yeah, that's like an hour before. So something's not good. Oh no, here we go. Yeah, it was just making a new one over here. So no, that's the 7th. The 21st is today. So we have one at 1210, 1203, 1232. And why didn't it make any other backup files? Okay, let me see something here. Something's off. If I go to customize preference, auto backup files here, I have a mindset to save every 5 minutes, 3 files, and it didn't do that. Okay, well, let me try to open the file again from here. I think I did a backup before. Okay, yeah, I did save before. But yeah, I guess I don't know. That's strange. Auto backup should save mine every 5 minutes, and it didn't save it every 5 minutes. My last save file was an hour ago. So I guess you can't trust the auto backup as much. All right, so we didn't lose too much here. We saw the example here with these shapes, right? This is fine to apply concrete, not a big deal. Something like this, is something so complex that really, it wouldn't do a good job here with the computer. For us, most of our shapes are gonna be like this kind of cubit shape. So it's good to start with the basic materials applying to to these elements because they do a better job, But also do one more here. I want you to also set up a sphere here and also apply the same things to the sphere because it is gonna be different here than those, right? The spheres are more complex object, right? So let's say we take this one here. I'll do only one here before we finish. And we take this sphere here and we apply this, right? Let's do isolate here. So let's say, this is the sphere. I go here again to the sphere. I go to modifier. I go to UVW map. Okay. I give it spherical, which is the shape that we have, right? And then I go to map scalar. Where is it here? Okay. you're gonna see something here, right? Problem. So how's this looking right now? Does it look seamless?
No.
No. So it looks broken up. So this is a more of an organic shape, right? So organic shapes don't react well to these modifiers here, right? So the map scaler and the UV map only work well for things that are cubic in nature, right? Boxes, rectangles, even if they're different shapes. But anything organic, it doesn't create a well, seamless, it starts to become choppy and those things. So for something like a sphere, I wouldn't use this scale method. I was, delete this, delete that. Oops. Delete that. Okay. And you see that now, actually, without having any modifier, it looks pretty good, right? Over here, right? The problem is that it's scaled too big. So for scaling something organic, again, don't use this step with the UV map and the map scaler. We're going to scale directly through the material, which means here. But the thing is, since I already have this material already applied to this one here, right? When I modify this one here, it's going to modify that one here. So what I'm going to do here is this one here, I'm going to make a duplicate of this one. So let's say, where can I put it? So I'm going to just drag it out here. I'm going to replace this with one for now. I'm going to make a stone wall, I don't know, sphere. All right, so now I'm going to apply this stone wall to the sphere here. Right, so now it's completely different than this one over here. And the way to modify here is we're going to modify directly through here, through the actual material. So if we go here down to diffuse, right, there's the material, right, maps. We're going to use this here. So we're going to go to the coordinates here. And we're going to use here the tiling, right, to modify directly from the source, right? So it's a tile means, the bigger the tiles, so right now, 1 is default. If I make it 3, it will make it 3 times as small. If I make it 5, small, right? But again, it's stretching it up and down like this, right? You want to keep also the one on the bottom should be equal. So we do 5 and 5. That's going to make it 5 times as smaller and see what happens. See, now this is not nicely mapped, to an organic shape. Everything aligns. Of course, once you get to the top here, there's nothing you can do here. Everything's going to go to a point, but everything around here, it's still seamless, right? If you want to make the material bigger, then the tile becomes less, So 1, say we do 0.5 and 0.5. You keep this equal if you want to keep the same proportion, right? So right now it's bigger, but it's the same, it looks like, for the most part, okay. If you make it 3 like this, right? If you want to make this a little bit fatter towards the top, maybe we do 3 and 4. No, that's going to squeeze it, 5, right? So we can start to change the proportion also of the material. If we make it 3 and 2, better. So that looks like a nice proportion. That looks perfect. And that looks mapped, exactly. So try to map these 4, using the UV map and map scaler, and then do again 5 spheres and map the same way, but mapping it directly to that one. And don't forget that you do have to make a duplicate of the material, because otherwise it's going to modify the other one. And that's it, So that'll be for today's class, right? I'm going to set up, a Brightspace assignment for you guys to upload, your first 5 renderings, right? And these renders, just have to capture, the things you did with this, capture these things over here, right? And then one of them that captures, the change of light, from sunset to sunrise that we discussed in the beginning, in those 5, renderings. If you want to do more than 5, you can do as many as you want, but at least 5, right? One has to be the transition from sunrise to sunset, right? Kind of lighting. And the other 4, you can choose, maybe you do 2 of these buildings here and 2 of these, showcasing these things here. The main thing is that you're going to set up 5 different cameras, right? Don't just pick one camera, move it and render. Get familiar with, picking this camera, copy it here, copy as a copy, right? This should not be instance because they should all be independent. So copy 5 cameras, right, throughout, like this. And then afterwards, set up each camera to have a pretty nice looking view. And then we're going to render all 5 shots. And then next class, at the beginning of class, we'll review everyone's 5 renderings. We can do a quick round, and then we can go in on the next topic for the class. So as you put the cameras here, you see the side of the shop over here, go through each one, and see how they look. Oops.
Professor, this lecture is going to be on the YouTube channel as well to go back
Exactly,
to
yes.
the tile rendering for
Exactly,
the
yes.
different
After
time frames.
it's done, it'll download and I'll post it on YouTube, afterwards. Yeah, for sure. That's it. Yeah. So again, 5 cameras, I'll post a lecture on YouTube and I'll post the Brightspace assignment for you guys to submit those 5 renderings for the class. And then, from this point on, every week we'll submit 5 new renderings that capture whatever topics we're doing in the class. So that should be our major assignments in class will be making, these weekly renderings for the class. Any comments, any questions before we end? No? Yes?
No, maybe. Okay, Professor. Appreciate
All
it.
right, guys. Hopefully everything's clear for you guys. Any questions, let me know. Otherwise, have a good weekend. I'll see you guys next class.
You too, Professor. Thank you.
Guys.
All right, thank you, Professor.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Have
Thank
a
you.
good day.
Professor, have a good one.
You too.